Scraft ahoy! Alrighty, this is a round 2 game. It's RedDragon versus Haymaker. It's one of the new maps. This is Blackpink, and we've got RedDragon in the bottom left playing as Protoss, and up in the top right we have got Haymaker as the Terran. Yeah, let's see what's going on. Hopefully, everything sounds a bit weird to me. I've got a new headset and I can't really hear my own voice, so it all sounds a bit weird. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay, and hopefully you can hear the game sounds as well. So opening up then, Haymaker, very standard, supply depot at the top of the ramp, looking okay. Meanwhile though, RedDragon is sending this worker out onto the map and doesn't have a pylon yet, although there is a pylon coming down here, so that's okay. So it doesn't look like... oh, hello. What is this from RedDragon? This is definitely not a standard opening. We've got a pylon on the map, not sure what that's about. Not sure why you need a pylon in your main base if you've dropped one on the map. The worker doesn't seem to be staying to build anything here. I'm not... what? Double gas before gateway? This is all very bizarre. So yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see what RedDragon's got in mind for all of that stuff going on. Maybe this worker's just going to hang out there for a little minute. Don't know. Haymaker, though, much more standard, is building this engineering bay. You know, since the changes to the game, the way Chrono Boost works for Protoss now, it is possible to get out a frighteningly early oracle into your opponent's mineral line. So, you know, the engineering bay, an early engineering bay, I don't mind at all. Does mean that he can now build a turret here that could see off that oracle if necessary. You know, normally if the Protoss was going to do something like that, here would be the location you would drop a pylon and you would build your Stargate here. And if you go absolutely all out, you know, somewhere about the 3-minute mark, you can get an oracle into this area, which is pretty early. It's certainly, you know, about 30 seconds sooner than it used to be. But you do have to absolutely, you know, go for it in order to achieve that. I'm still curious about this pylon. I don't really know what's going on. The production tab looks absolutely normal. There's the side core building its home. There's 2 additional gateways coming down its home. This worker hiding in the corner, like that a lot. I don't think RedDragon can see that, so no, he can't. So I like the position of that. I can come back and have another look around in a minute. Despite the terrifyingly early gases, there's only 1 worker in this gas, so I don't really... maybe that was a mistake, maybe it's just a bit of a random thing. So what is this going to be? It is going to be a Stargate. Not really in a position to shorten the distance to his opponent's base significantly, but it is in a... oh, hello, Dancer. It is in a position where it is not likely to be scouted. It's in a position where it can sort of remain hidden. So when this worker decides to have a look around this base, he is not going to see that Stargate. I'm pretty sure the Zealots should have just caught sight of that, but Zealots don't have a particularly long sight range. But had RedDragon been watching, yeah, you can see that is showing up on his... you know, that blip will show up momentarily on the mini-map there. You can just see it. Anyway, it doesn't look like he spotted it, so that worker will have an opportunity to do some scouting momentarily. So 2 tech labs, done no research going on at either as yet, and no Marauders building, so I don't know if Haymaker is planning on a lot of Marauder production. Maybe he just wants to get these upgrades 2 at a time. Either way, he needs to get that up and running. A pretty conservative command center on the high ground here, rather than building it, you know, down at the bottom, and that's kind of okay if you don't know what your opponent's up to, but I sort of feel he does know what his opponent's up to. Looks like he lost that worker when I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, so he kind of should have a rough idea that his opponent doesn't really have anything that's going to come across the map. He did have a worker in his opponent's base. He would know if there was about to be sort of 6 or 10 stalkers appear. So, you know, I'd prefer the command center building here. I know you can fly them, but they do fly pretty slowly. So a little bit supply blocked at the minute, but 2 supply depots building. As soon as they finish up, we're going to see Marines and Marauders in production. These are both reactors coming down, so plenty of production structures appearing for Haymaker, which is great. So once he gets this up and mining as well, he is going to have plenty of ways to spend that additional income. So let's see how much the Oracle can get done. Pops into the back of the base, and the turret is up and ready. So the Oracle gets a single mule for its trouble. 1 mule. So I think Haymaker's going to be pretty pleased with that. He's going to be pretty happy with that result. Needs to be careful with this Oracle. It doesn't have much in the way of shields left, and does in fact lose the Oracle. That's a shame. Second Oracle is coming in. You know the turret is there, so, and you know that these Marines are there as well, so you really be careful with that. I'm not sure why you're flying in there at all, really. Maybe run in and tag these, or tag these production structures to see what comes out of them, by all means, but keep that Oracle alive if you can. So it doesn't look like there's anything further coming from the Stargate. Looks like RedDragon was hoping to get some early damage done. One of the new sort of features of the game, this shield battery, has been built. Shield batteries are essentially recharge the shields of Protoss units in the vicinity, which can be a very useful thing indeed. And in the sort of pro game, there's already signs that can be used aggressively. I think there's a miss rally here. I don't know what's happening here. Some sort of worker party going on. A couple of probes just nuzzling in the corner there. This is awkward, isn't it? Like, I don't know what's going on there. Yeah. Who knows? But yeah, you can even use the shield battery aggressively. So what you can do in the very early game, get maybe a couple of stalkers out, send it across the map with a worker, get the worker to drop a pile on here, and then drop a shield battery, maybe 2 shield batteries, and then just kind of push and prevent your opponent from coming down his own ramp to expand, because even with just a couple of stalkers, 2 might be a little bit few, but a small number of units basically just won't die because the shield batteries can recharge their shields. They don't recharge indefinitely. The shield battery does have energy. You can see here it's currently at 100 of 100, and I think it recharges. Yeah, there you go. It restores 3 shield per 1 energy. So that essentially gives units in the vicinity an extra 300 shielding. So if you've got 2 of those, that is a huge amount of damage that those units can absorb before any damage is really done to them. So RedDragon, as we can see, teching up. Robo Bay is done. The Twilight Council finishing up. In the production tab, meanwhile, for Haymaker is mostly units, no further tech structures coming down, but he's already done a pretty good job of getting that infrastructure up. So you can see that we've got a couple of starports here. We've got a tech lab on the starport. Not sure what we're going to see come out of that. Normally, if you're building a tech lab on your starport, you're either going Ravens or you're going Banshees. Reactors are more common so that you can get out those medevacs 2 at a time. Oracle comes home for reasons best known to itself, and is just hanging out at the top of the ramp. Meanwhile, Haymaker queuing up SCVs, continuing to build SCVs, but I do notice that pro production has stopped for RedDragon. So if we look at the supply, Haymaker, it looks in very good shape. These tanks appear to be stuck. So that is a problem. And Haymaker, you have the facility to build medevacs, but as yet no medevacs out. Finally, 1 medevac does start. So once a medevac is out, it can lift these tanks out of there and drop them down here. But that's a little bit awkward. Probably better in the long run to simply sacrifice this tech lab, lift this barracks, and plant it somewhere else with a reactor on it, so that tanks in production here can come out. It also looks like, I'm not sure the tanks can fit through this gap. I think that's maybe why they're pulling here. So he needs to realize that and needs to do something about that, because if something does turn up, those tanks won't really take part in the battle. But with that said, a very substantial army lead for Haymaker at present. So, a couple of observers showing up. Not sure that we need two in the same place. These units finally are working their way across the map for Haymaker, but he needs to get those tanks involved as well. That definitely needs to happen. The scan goes done. RedDragon knows roughly nothing about this. Haymaker knows that there is a force at the top of this ramp, and probably knows that he has got enough to beat that force, but needs to wait for these tanks. Also, one medevac for this many Marines? No, lots of medevacs is what I want to see. Plenty of facility to build those. So here we go. There is a Marauder in that medevac, needs unloaded. Two more medevacs showing up, so that is going to make a lot of difference as well. Handily cancels this expand. There's too much Terran here. He can pretty much just A-click and win. The shield batteries are doing exactly... Oh no, that Colossus, that is not what you like to see at all. Colossus can be so effective against Marines, doing what this one is doing, and with the shield batteries here as well. This Colossus is going to be absolutely brutal. Huge amounts of damage dealt by that single unit before it went down. But again, the army supply is still heavily in favor of the Terran. Units here making their way across the map, coming to join the fray. The Terran just wins from here. The RedDragon is out of units. It's over. The only thing he's left to kill is this photon cannon. Kill the photon cannon and just get involved. This warping, shooting units while they're warping in does kind of bonus damage. So let rip on these units as they're warping in, so that when they finish, they finish with no shields and no health, and you just kill them. So some of these damaged units, one of the things you can do if you're not short of money and you don't need the income is you can use your orbital commands to drop mules at the point where you're fighting and put the mules on auto repair, so that you can sort out damaged units like this Cyclone. But Haymaker really needs to get his tanks involved. Look how much firepower there is here. A couple of sieged up tanks here would have radically altered that battle and would have made it a much more efficient trade for the Terran player. So the expand for RedDragon comes down again. I can see two more Colossus are in production, one about to finish, and Colossus are very good damage dealers to things like Marines. If we look at what they can do here versus light, you see that they do bonus damage, but they also do splash damage. So that thermal lance, sweeps across in an arc, and Marines tend to be lined up nicely for that. So Marines are considered light. So to beat Colossus as a Terran, you want to be building a Marauder heavy mix, and you want to have either Liberators or Vikings in the mix. But these siege tanks look almost one shot in that. Absolutely brutal. That many siege tanks is going to be very hard to beat. Now, charge lots can do very well against this, but as you can see, repositions nicely. The Terran is in such a strong position here, but he needs to unload these medevacs. He also needs to deselect the medevacs as he's moving about here. This maneuvering, he's grabbed the medevacs as well, and while they're on a move command, the medevacs aren't healing these units. So he needs to deselect the medevacs, and if you then select those medevacs, hit A and click on one of your Marines, as you move the Marines about, the medevacs will follow. But the Terran just wins from here. He can just stand and fight. He's got more than enough firepower to just walk through this. The tanks, you need to be a bit careful. That friendly fire is real, so you need to think about the way you're sieging them up rather than doing them all in one go like that. Come on, unload these medevacs, dude. Siege up these two, then unsiege these two, creep them forward a bit, then once they're sieged, unsiege these two, creep them forward, and sort of piggyback them like that, leapfrogging them rather forward is the way to do it. Oh, disruptor ball, this could hit hard actually. Modifications to the disruptors mean that a disruptor ball now automatically explodes on contact with an enemy unit. I like the unsiege there as these charge slots come down. That is, whether planned or not, I don't know, but absolutely beautiful. Siege tanks can do serious amounts of friendly fire damage to your own Marines. This disruptor shot is brutal. Okay, How did he do there? 4 kills, and I think 3 of them were tanks. Oh, and another, that one not quite making the dream impact, but definitely these disruptors are doing a good job of holding things back. But needs to get this Liberator in play as well. You know, there's not really much here that shoots up, so the Liberator in Liberation mode can really do serious damage to things like Colossus and things like disruptors. The siege tanks, though, pounding away. There's now literally nothing that shoots up, so you know, the Liberator in Liberation mode can just control this entire region. You can see the line of blue stuff streaming across the map. The army supply remains in favor of the Terran. You know, this base, not even mining, it has been allowed to finish, but really what should be on the Terran's mind is ending production. So with this many medevacs available, I'd like to see, you know, this one's got stuff in it already. I'd like to see everything just go into the medevacs, leave the Liberator in Liberation Zone, maybe 1 siege tank behind it. Okay, only gets the 1 siege tank. Oh, careful not to lose these Liberators, though. That's expensive. These cost a lot. But yeah, ultimately, I'd like to see them load up and just unload here. You know, unload here, siege up, and your siege tanks are covering this ramp, and it's very hard then for your opponent to try and get back into his own base. Those disruptors not doing so well, getting a pissed, and I think this is the end. We're seeing now there is literally nothing really left for the Protoss. I don't think. If there are units, they must be in production, because I don't see anything anywhere, and I'm expecting a GG very shortly. Yeah, man. So, you know, Haymaker doing actually a really good job on the macro front. Really good job of building the superior army, of getting his tech structures in place nice and early, having the sort of production to match his income, expanding so that the income goes up, and then just holding down buttons to pump out units, as we can see. So pretty impressive job of that. A couple of mistakes with the micro, you know, siege tanks left at home aren't doing any good, and having those medevacs grabbed with the rest of your units was leading to the medevacs not healing stuff, and units being in the medevacs during a battle, which is not what you want at all. But apart from that, a very, very solid game from Haymaker, and he goes 1-0 up. GG.